I think a lot of things about your experience as an individual are supposed to be experienced as an individual. And I don't mean that to say we shouldn't share ourselves with other people, share our experiences, but recognize that you owe no one an explanation. I think that a lot of times we look at other people's perspectives of us and we try to fix it to make sure they perceive us in a way that's accommodating for them or in a way that makes us comfortable. And I think, of course, first and foremost, I think a certain amount of honesty needs to be had with yourself in order to act in accordance to what you actually want. You know, if you want to inspire love within yourself and actually be a good person and live within the world in a good way, of course, you have to listen. Of course, you have to listen to yourself and be honest with the way you interact and truly analyze whether or not, you're actually good in terms of your impact. But when it comes to just our general perception, our general life and day to day, I think we spend too much time focusing on everything, not even but ourselves, but everything pertaining to ourselves. I think we're too encompassed with this idea of who we are that we get sort of lost in other people's perceptions. It's like we're trying to perceive ourselves so much that we wait for other people to fill in the blanks where we don't know. And I'm realizing that the stuff that we don't know is stuff that we do know. It's stuff that we just haven't accepted to ourselves or we haven't given ourselves the perspective to actually see. I feel like who we are is more easily expressed than it is thought. And I think once you express yourself and you take that expression in and you truly are genuine with who you are, I think you don't owe anyone an explanation. I think especially with your desires and what you want for yourself, I think we have to learn to do things to do them. Do things for what it does for us inside, not what it brings to us outside in a way. And in living your life like that, I think, of course, like take care of your house and home, but I think that a lot more intimacy and a lot more passion can be brought into the act of living if we stop doing it conditionally. If we stop conditioning ourselves to appreciate the moment and only appreciate ourselves once other people give us that appreciation, once other things give us that validation. I think validation in your life has to start with you. I think a lot of things have to start with you, and it's just about your ability to sort of let go of your need for other narratives. And I don't mean that to say be narcissistic or to say don't listen to other people, but to say recognize your story is being written where you are. Your story is being written with every single action you make. And I think our overzealous participation in this battle of perceptions or our over focus on how other people look at us and how we look at other people and how we look at ourselves is just a cycle of judgment. I feel like a lot of us are just projecting our negativity onto other people and we're projecting it back onto ourselves via their perspective and via what we assume to be their perspective. And that's why I feel like it always has to be you, and you don't owe an explanation to anyone. It's not really to say, or explanation to anyone. It's not really to say, don't express yourself to other people. It's not to say that at all, but to say, express yourself to yourself. Give yourself a chance to be listened to by yourself first and foremost. I think a lot of times we don't know how we are. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we want. We don't know this, is that, and other because we expect to hear it from the world when we really should be answering that for ourselves. Not to say you should just have an answer deeply in your head, like, oh, I know I want to do this, like out of nowhere. But to say you have to give yourself a chance to actually express yourself and see what you align with most and see what actually fuels you. See what makes you feel most like yourself, see what makes you feel, I guess, in sync with what you want. And I think the beauty is on the other side. Not even necessarily in just doing things that make you feel like yourself or in doing whatever that individual thing is, but recognizing that you don't have to be anywhere but where you are. You don't have to explain yourself for being where you are. And I think, a lot of us are in certain situations because of circumstances, because of choices we've made in our past, because of this, that, and the other. And I think we shouldn't hark on ourselves so much for that, especially if we want to move forward. I think our overzealous focus on the negativity that has happened in our past is pushed into the future when we allow ourselves to hyperfixate on it. The only way to create something good and new is to be in the new moment and to create something good yourself. I think a lot of times we wait for something to be created for us when it's really something we can create for ourselves. And I'm just saying that to sort of push this idea that we have a lot more power than we realize when it comes to our mind, our experience, our entire life. I think a lot of us are in a lot of ways chasing labels, titles, and things that are somewhat unfulfilling. I think that we need to learn in a real way how to be more human with ourselves. Learn how to meet life where it is and slow it down with our presence and truly appreciate the moment for what it is. You know, recognize that everything that will happen will happen. Everything that will be will be. And if you have any say in it, any chance to alter that, any chance to change it, it's not through thought alone. It's through you being present enough to make the choices to actually do those certain things. And recognizing that is possible for you. I think we all have to recognize how deserving we are, how loved we are, even if it's just by, a universal entity, something like that. I think our very existence is an ode for love. We should be loved by ourselves via just in virtue of being us. You're the only person that can take up the space you take up. And I think if we want to learn to love ourselves or improve upon ourselves or be better, it's not about our overzealous focus on being better. It's about our not necessarily focus, but allowing ourselves to be present so we can choose things that actually align with what we want for ourselves. And I always use the example of patience, but if you want to be more patient, it's not about just thinking, oh, I want to be more patient. It's about being present enough to recognize where you can exercise more patience. And the same thing with, oh, I want to love myself more. It's not about just thinking I love myself. It's about what does that look like? Can I be present enough to choose things that are examples and exemplary of the love I have for myself and express it to myself? In terms of not owing anyone an explanation, like in terms of the things that you love, of course, as long as they don't harm other people, you shouldn't have to feel a certain way for doing those things. I realize we don't give a lot of people a lot of freedom. And that's something I'm trying to give more people. I'm trying to give myself in regards to my expression, in regards to what I like. Not everything has to be a certain way that somebody sees it. And I think a lot of times we allow other people's thoughts to get into ours, and we lose our ability to think for ourselves sometimes. And it happens to all of us. I'm not saying this as someone who's unaffected by it. It happens to me all the time. And I recognize it, and I recognize that I don't necessarily want that to be the case. I can recognize when there's truth in what people say. And I can recognize when a part of me that's hurt or a part of me that's insecure is just conforming to that or giving into that doubt when the good possibility exists too. It's about what we funnel our energy into and what we truly give to ourselves. And not owing anyone an explanation, we're basically saying that we're sufficient enough in terms of our own mental perspective of ourselves to be here, to be who we are, to love ourselves, to continue on whatever pursuit we are. And we're all flawed. We all make mistakes at times, and we should count on it. You have to give yourself a chance to be human. I feel like our confidence, or confidence in a real sense, is a very soft thing. It's not something that's hard and rigid. It's not, aggressive. It's not arrogant. It's very soft and it's very deep. And I feel like the softer you're able to be with yourself, the more vulnerable you're able to be with the world around you. The more confident you're going to display yourself, the more comfortable you're going to feel in the world. And I think that this softness is really, if I can articulate it, more so a relationship to letting your guard down and recognizing that having your guard up is what makes you feel like you're being attacked. Because we're not really giving ourselves a chance to see what's really impacting us, and we're just assuming that something's going to impact us. We're just assuming that whatever this is has a viable reason, has a justifiable reason to make me feel a certain way when it doesn't. When it really doesn't. And I think in letting your guard down with yourself and trying to be more human, be more whole, be more, I don't know, be more complete with yourself. It's about your allowance of yourself, not your overzealous thought about how you ought to be, but accepting where you are and recognizing that if you want to get to a certain point, if you want to improve yourself, if you want to do this, if you want to do that, it's about the presence and the faith that you give to yourself in virtue of being you. And I think once you do that, then it sort of becomes more easy to sort of juggle a lot of the things that we deal with in our life. Like after I started doing affirmations and started trying to implant my own thoughts in my head in regards to myself. I noticed drastic changes in pretty much everything, every area of my life. There are things that I have overcome that I was like praying I would overcome in previous years, and I feel like the only ways I've overcame them was in my attempts, in my allowance of myself to be present, in my separating my relationship to these certain somethings, these obstacles, and recognizing that I'm sufficient where I am, and it doesn't have to be an obstacle. It has to just be something I have to get around, something I have to do, something I get to do even, and allow it to fester growth within me. Allow it to be looked at as a learning opportunity, or allow it to be looked at in a way that actually accommodates me and gives me the space to be comfortable. You know, I think a lot of things are subject to our perspective, and why not have a perspective that actually allows you to exist in comfort? I think a lot of us hark on ourselves and we create so much anxiety about our futures and about what we ought to do and what we're going to do that when we actually get to doing that, we're experiencing more anxiety than the actual experience of the moment, the actual experience of what we're doing. And that's what it means to say you have to be the one to do what you do. We have to learn to do things just to do them and not necessarily some type of mental aspiration, not type of mental this is that and the other, but solely in virtue of doing it and being the one to doing it. You don't have to have everyone feel a certain way. All you have to do is be you. All you have to do is be your authentic self. And I know that's difficult at times, especially if you don't know what yourself is, but the easiest way I feel like to get to your authenticity is to start doing things for you. To start not looking so much so at the outcomes of every single thing, and start to enjoy the process, start to enjoy the moment, start to enjoy the middle path of pretty much everything, and allow it to be calm, serene, and allow it to be worthy of appreciation. Like, I used to live my life in a very structured way. I would say no, I wouldn't say like my whole life. This past year, this past semester, and I started off in a super structured way. I was writing down each and everything I wanted to do in that day. This. And I wasn't really giving myself a chance to do them. You know, I was committing myself to the obligation and being like, oh, I have to do this. And I wasn't giving myself a chance to just be within that certain something and learning and appreciating whatever it is in front of me. You know, you don't have to hark on everything you do. And I think we live in our connotations. So it's important to not label the things that you have to do in negative ways, especially if you have to do them. Because then it becomes negative and then it becomes a part of you. And then it becomes a part of your experience. And then it etches onto what you think your experience ought to be. Part of the times we escape or try to escape from certain situations that we deem as negative because of the negativity we place on it in our mind. We project all the time. And I always talk about projection, and my friends get on me all the time about saying that. But it's a very real thing. I project all the time. But I try to recognize when I am projecting, when I am perpetuating or adding a narrative or an idea onto whatever it is that I'm doing that is not beneficial to me. There's no point in looking at something bad and making it worse for yourself. You know, I think we can acknowledge the negativity that's present and still choose to be positive within ourselves and still choose to embrace a perspective, a viewpoint that allows us to be. I think that we truly don't owe anyone an explanation to be ourselves. I think that we're all unique, we're all individual, and that's what makes it important. That's what makes us human. That's what allows us to relate to each other is our authenticity. And since I've been trying to be more human and more in the moment and more accepting of others and more accepting of myself and learning to not be offended by other people's characteristics, traits, and not be offended by things that I don't have, it allows me to appreciate what others possess and be grateful that I get to experience them and be grateful that I get to experience the parts of myself that I have and truly have it all be an encompassing thing that promotes your own growth, because it's no longer about you. It's about learning from every single person, learning from every single thing, In saying that you owe no one an explanation, you're basically saying that it's not for you to explain. It's not for you to do this, that, and the other. You're here to experience you, not to explain yourself or to be experienced. And that's the point. You have to learn to be part of the experience, not part of the person preaching the experience. You need to learn how to be the message instead of being the messenger sometimes. And I think that's part of the beauty of it, because even if you are messaging, you still are the message at some point. As long as you're giving yourself a chance to express yourself and to be here and to have love for what you're doing. All in all, thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you made it this far, thank you. If you didn't, thank you anyway. I hope you guys are enjoying the life that you are living. And if you're not, I hope you're enjoying it, at least being yourself. And if you're not, look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, because why not? Life is too short to not appreciate you for being you and dealing with all the things that you've dealt with and appreciating yourself for it. So all in all, thank y'all. Keep being great. Keep being up. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, doing what you can, what you have, and treating yourself like a friend.